All right. Well, we are here for another episode of Bus Stop Blogs, where each week I give you a recap of my week at the Iron Yard during my half-mile walk from the bus stop to the Iron Yard. So, anyway, it's been a long week. This is definitely the hardest week that we've had so far. No questions asked. So we've been diving into JavaScript a lot more, which has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy JavaScript, and I've been doing JavaScript in some form for about a year now. So I'm feeling confident about it, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy problem solving and algorithms and things of that nature. So. Anyway, that's been a lot of fun. Each week we get like a weekly project that we're usually allowed to have the whole week to work on. And so on Monday, we were given an assignment that's due today, which is basically, it was kind of just like using nested objects and extracting data from nested objects. It wasn't, if you've got a good concept of objects, then it wasn't terribly difficult to kind of get done. So anyway, that was on Monday. One of the biggest highlights of the week for me, at least probably the thing I learned the most about this week, was this concept of event bubbling. And so basically, whenever you put an event on an object in the DOM, such as a click, like you click an image and something happens, like that's a click event. And so event bubbling is this concept of where when you click on something on the page, the click is captured going from the outermost DOM element down through all the way to the innermost DOM element, and then it bubbles back up. So it's really interesting, and there's some cool things that you can do with it. For example, if you're ever looking at, like, searching Google Images, it might render hundreds or thousands of images. Google's not going to put a click event on every single individual image that renders. That would severely hinder the performance speed of the page, especially if, as you're scrolling, if you've got like 1,000 images up on the screen, that's a whole lot of event listeners for the browser to be running. So instead, the entire container element that holds all of those images has a single event listener on it. And then whenever you click on that, there's something called an event target, which is basically grabs the innermost element through this idea of event bubbling, and then you can do something to manipulate that target element. So it's pretty cool. And then there are even ways you can navigate around that to end up landing on an element in between the outermost and innermost elements. So anyway, it's really cool. If you're a developer and are unfamiliar with the concept of event bubbling, then I definitely recommend that you check it out, because there are some powerful things you can do with it. Another thing that we did yesterday that was kind of challenging, I think for me this is the most challenging thing that we did this week, was sorting arrays and using an algorithm called bubble sorting. And we've got like a bubble theme going on this week, I guess. But the idea of bubble sorting is if you have an array of unsorted numbers and then you sort it, say in ascending order, it loops through the arrays and compares it in pairs. So compare the first item to the second item, and then flip it if you need to sort those two items, and then it goes to the second and third item, and third and fourth, and it will continue looping through until it doesn't swap any of those two elements. So it's pretty cool. I was working on that last night and got it going. So that's a cool way to sort arrays. I know that it's not the most efficient way to do it, and there are more efficient ways, but I think it's good to know a lot of different methods of algorithms and knowing when to use which one. So anyway, I'm looking forward to learning more about algorithms. On the side, I've still been learning Node. That's been a whole lot of fun. Earlier this week, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, I decided to make like a friends directory app. So basically, page pulls up and I can enter in a friend's name, add a friend. I can then go click on that friend and edit their information and then update it. I can also delete the friend, and all of this is stored to a database. That's what's cool. You could do all of these things without Node, like just pure JavaScript, but if you did, it wouldn't be saved to a database. So as soon as you refresh the page, you don't have any friends anymore. So that'd be kind of sad. So that's where databases come in. And so I've been learning Node, which is a way that you can write in JavaScript and interact with a server. Node is actually written in C++, but you as the programmer write in JavaScript to interact with that C++ language. So it's really interesting. Express is the framework that you use with Node. And then Mongo is the database that you use. So anyway, that's been a whole lot of fun. Additionally, related to Node, we had a project 2 days ago where we had to take a mock-up of a single blog post and recreate it using DOM manipulation. In other words, we weren't hard coding the HTML for the blog because nobody's going to do that for a blog site. That would be very inefficient. Instead, you essentially create a template, and then you have data that you plug into that template to then render to the page. And so you can use DOM manipulation to make that happen. That was a cool assignment, you know. Got through that pretty quickly, and as with many of my assignments, I'm trying to take them further than the minimum requirements. And so since I've been learning Node and working with databases, I decided to take that assignment and then turn it into something where I could actually, first of all, do multiple blog posts. That does not require Node. That's just functional programming. But then saving it to the database. So I started up a Node app and started coding it that day. By the next morning, less than 24 hours after we got the assignment, I had a Node app going where you could, from the interface, meaning just from the browser, you could write a new blog post, publish it, it would get saved to the database. You can go in and edit the blog post, and everything will be rendered correctly. The only thing I have left to do is adding the step to delete the blog post, and then I want to eventually create user authentication where you log in with a username and password. So that project gave me some trouble 2 nights ago for sure. Basically, I had it set up where I would fill out whenever I was testing it, whenever I would write the post in the text area in the form. If I did multiple paragraphs, as it rendered to the page, after it was published, I would all of a sudden see like new line characters in the blog post, which obviously isn't ideal. So I had to, splice those out and create an array, and then got that working. But then going back to edit the post and have that same content automatically fill the text area as a string was then another challenge. So anyway, I was up till about 1 or 2 in the morning that night, troubleshooting and problem solving, and eventually got it going. So that was cool. That felt like a win for sure. And then yesterday was a fun day. We had a project where we had to basically build a blackjack game. And if you've ever played blackjack before, essentially the idea is you don't want to go over 21 with your total number of your cards. And aces can count as 1 or 11. So that's kind of the thing that can trip people up a lot, is this idea of your aces can count as 1 or 11, and you want your computer to make the best choice on how to add that up. So the problem would be easy if it was just, hey, if you have aces, try them as 11 first. If that totals to more than 21, try them as all as ones. That works for most cases, but whenever you're testing your code, you want it to be flawless in all cases, meaning those rare ones, which we commonly call edge cases. And so, for example, if you had 2 or 3 aces, then that could get you into, if it were a situation where you'd want one of them to be played as an 11 and the other to be played as 1, that wouldn't happen with that code. Another possible solution was basically saying, if, like, looping through the aces, if you add this one as 11 and it stays under 21, then add it as 11, otherwise add it as 1. That's also flawed, because let's say in the rare case that you get 3 aces, you might add the first one and be at 20. Well, you've got 2 more aces to play, you're going to go over. So the ideal is that you play all 3 aces as 1s. And so what I did was I created an array of all the possible sums of your aces, depending on how many you have, and then it loops through that to find out the best number that you can play to get you as close to 21 without going over. So it's really cool. It works in all cases, and I don't think that that this solution was commonly solved, in that way. So anyway, edge case testing, super important. Anyway, I'm here. I'm getting long-winded and running out of things to talk about. So I'll see you next week.